No news of my father came forth the other day, and somber restlessness took hold of me. Originally, it seemed Hijikata-san granted me approval to accompany the captains on their rounds through Kyoto to search for my dad. Then he called me in. Ah, right. Sumimasen. We are just gonna skip. So, we're remaining in the compound. After contemplating, I decided to stay in. I couldn't convince myself that I wouldn't be a burden to them during dangerous situations. Still, it was disheartening to think about. Another dull day spent inside. Throughout the past 6 months, I was allowed to finally search for my father on the rounds, and I felt like a part of the house. By contributing. Even though sometimes I was occupied with cleaning or cooking, it seemed like I was serving my part of the Shinsengumi in a meaningful way. I spent most of my time with the captains, but there were many opportunities to chat with the warriors and come to know them as real people. Maybe they were starting to think of me as a warrior in training rather than Hijikata-san's page. These worrying thoughts made me so anxious, I was turning numb. The idea that I had become so dependent on the Shinsengumi at this moment. What should I do today? I was resigned to the consequences of my decision. Something that felt like I was wasting away the tender moments of my life in these headquarters. I was, in short, with nothing to do. All right. I decided to enter the inner courtyard, where maybe I could feel a pleasant breeze tingle my face in the shade. The quaintness may calm me down. Damn it. Alas, no winds blew through the courtyard today. No reprieve from the harsh sun bearing down upon this dry emptiness. I had a feeling it was going to be a bad day. Shade was the best I could hope for, it seemed. I sighed, sitting in whatever shade I could find. Something occurred to me as the sun roasted Kyoto. Oh, right. My father's been here, hasn't he? They mentioned it, but they hadn't told me why. He was tending to the injured. Was he tending to the injured? Or perhaps educating the Shinsengumi on how to avoid illness? Maybe he'd intended to stay here long term. My father never mentioned to have been with the Shinsengumi. He'd visited only a few times, or so I have been told. If he'd really been their doctor, then he would have visited far more often, which left me with the question, why? It was extremely clear to me that the Shinsengumi had plenty of secrets, but I grew suspicious that these secrets deeply implicated my father as well. No, that can't be right, can it? I shook my head again, trying my best to dispel the dark thoughts taking place.
何がまさかなんですか?
I spun around to find that Sanan-san had walked behind me, utterly undetected and unannounced. Oh, Sanan-san, is it alright for you to be walking around?
私が寝たきりの病人か何かのような言い方はよしてください。何の問題もありませんよ。
There was a hint of coldness to his words.
もっとも、左腕は寝たきりですがね。
I couldn't bear to look at the sad, twisted smile he gave me. His arm hadn't healed, and it seemed certain now that it would never. The rest of the captain seemed sure that he would never be able to use his arm, as he'd done before.
君こそ部屋を出ていていいんですか? 屯所内を勝手に動き回られては困ります。
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. They usually let me walk around as I pleased, so long as I didn't go into anyone's room, but I knew that technically I was confined to my room. Any freedom given to me was simply a courtesy. In other words, Sanan-san was right. If he decided to chastise me for being in the courtyard, I had no reasonable response. There were some things I wanted to think about. I hoped the courtyard would be breezy. The moment the words were out of my mouth, I realized it sounded far more like childish excuses than a valid explanation.
我々の監視から逃れて一人とは何か企んでいることでもあるみたいですよ。
I'm sorry. Still, I was beginning to grow accustomed to the subtle cruelty that seemed to accompany each word from Sanan-san's mouth. Alright, I'm going back to my room then. I turned and began to walk away. Sanan-san's unpleasantness had started after he was wounded during his trip to Osaka. He spent most of his time locked in his room now, and he was quick to lash out on others in response. I knew the loss of his arm hurt him more than I could understand, but I wish he could go back to being the warm, kind man he was originally. I turned around to see him still standing there. It's really hot out today. You should try and stay out of the sun. Please, take care of yourself. I gave him a nervous little laugh, and he responded with a chuckle of his own. His smile didn't look forced.
ありがとうございます。君も体調には気をつけてくださいね。
Hi! The Sanan-san I'd first met was still there. My spirits lifted. I ran back to my room. It was later that evening that the compound exploded with activity. And exploded it did. I was walking down the hall when I heard footsteps and turned to see Nagakura coming towards me. Nagakura? What's that for? He glanced down almost absently at his hands, holding a candle and an exceptionally long needle.
長州の患者を捕まえたんだけどよ。なかなか口を割らねえらしいんだ。
Oh, jeez.
土方さんが直々に相手をすることになったんだが、道具が足りないって言うから持ってくところよ。
I don't understand.
こういうことは分からねえ方が幸せだって。
I can think of it. He gave another bark of laughter, turned his back on me, and walked off. Bye. Nagakura, bye. As the sun began to set, the activity in the compound reached a fever pitch. It was so busy that I couldn't even help with making dinner. The commotion was overwhelming. Hesuke! He shot past my door, then wheeled back around. What happened? All the men are running around. Any word from that Choshu prisoner?
ああ、あいつがようやく口を割ってさ。今夜長州の奴らが会合するらしいんだ。で、俺らは討ち入り準備中ってわけ。
Oh. Heisuke went on to explain that the Shinsengumi would be splitting into two groups and searching locations at opposite ends of the city. Kondo-san would take 10 men to the Ikeda Inn, and Hijikata-san would take 24 to the Shikoku Inn. We really don't see Shikoku that much.
土方さんたちの行く四国屋が当たりっぽいよ。俺は逆方向だから。ちょっと残念だな。
They sent more men with Hijikata because they thought he'd be seeing action. Kondo-san and his men were to make sure they covered all their bases. You mean there aren't even 40 men ready?
まあ、肝心な時に暑さで腹を壊す奴らが多くて困ってるんだよ。
I'd known that the heat in close quarters made some men sick, but I hadn't known it was so many. Heisuke sighed.
会津藩や諸次第にも連絡入れたんだけど、動いてくれる気配がないんだよな。
Sounds like you've got your word cut out for you. Unfortunately, there wasn't much I could offer him apart from sympathy. I had a feeling it was going to be a difficult night. After all the men capable of fighting had left for their respective assignments, Sanan-san called for me.
もちろん名目上のことですが、私は局長から屯所の守護を仕切るよう仰せつかりました。
Sanan-san's passive-aggressive attitude reared its head.
手薄になった新選組の屯所が何者かに狙われないとも限りません。君は私の目が届く範囲にいてください。非常時には適宜私から指示を出します。
Hi. I hesitated a moment, then spoke. Does that mean you'll protect me? I wasn't sure why, but he laughed at that.
腹痛で寝込んでいる大使よりは私の方がまだ使い物になりますから。
Was I supposed to be happy? His smile was so sad. I wasn't sure what to say. It seemed to hurt him most when the other men were out fighting, and all he could do was wait. The silence between us stretched out until the door to our room suddenly opened without a sound.
三男総長、奴らの会合場所が池田屋と判明いたしました。
The Hijikata Inn?
あ、それは困りましたね。新選組は意外と賭け事に弱いのかもしれません。
His tone was light, but his face was serious, and with good reason. They'd been certain Shikoku was the right location, and I'd only sent half as many men to Ikeda.
山崎君、一つ面倒を頼まれてくれますか。
The man who he'd call Yamazaki nodded curtly. He is a Shinsengumi officer and spy, as well as a member of the Watch. Despite not living in the Yagi residence, he is aware of my situation.
まず、敵の所在は池田屋であると四国屋へ向かった土方君に伝えてください。そして大変お手数なのですが、その伝令にはその子も同行させてほしい。
Wait. Yamazaki seemed just as surprised. I paused before thinking about what's next. Why me? Why me? I feel like if I were to go with him, I would only be a burden. Why did he choose me? I can't stand the thought of getting in someone's way and being the reason something bad happens.
足手まといといえども、人数には変わりませんよ。
Sanan-san's responded while giving me a cold gaze.
伝令に向かう途中、他の浪士に足止めされるかもしれません。それ以外にも長州側の遠兵が存在する可能性もあります。もし伝令の道中に敵と遭遇したのなら、土方君との合流も遅れてしまうでしょう。
Sanan-san finished with a soft smile I hadn't seen him use. Sanan-san finished with a soft smile I hadn't seen him use for weeks.
さて、私の言いたいことはわかりますか？
はい。自分が長州遠兵の足止めを行い、最悪は彼女だけでも土方隊に合流させようと。
What? It sounded as if they were suggesting if things went badly, Yamazaki would sacrifice himself. I mean, it's Yamazaki!
もちろん山崎君が失敗するとは思っていませんよ。我々には人手が足りず、君には仕事が多い。会津藩や諸次第への連絡も担ってもらわねばなりませんから。
that would have Yamazaki running all across Kyoto. I suppose it really drove home just how thin the Shinsengumi were stretched. And there's no other person that could do this job? What about Shimada? Shimada is another Shinsengumi spy who is trusted enough with knowledge of my situation. Sanan-san shook his head. The Shinsengumi needed every single member they can get, and Shimada was with the Shikoku team. Which means that, apart from Yamazaki, I was the only one that could possibly serve as a messenger at the time.
確か雪村君だったな。護身程度の術なら身につけていると聞いたが。
I do.
残念ながら君の安全は保証できない。それで構わないというのであれば、俺に同行してくれ。
If I tried to run away while we were out, I had no doubt that he would kill me without hesitation. This mission is his priority, not my life. Even so, I'll go. I can take care of myself. You don't need to worry about me. Sanan-san gave me a small smile. I knew he wanted to join the battle more than anyone, but we both knew that wasn't possible. The least I could do was carry out my mission.
では、早朝命令、しかと承りました。
He bowed then as he stepped out of the room and turned to me.
全力で俺についてこい。
I took off after him, my legs working as hard as they could.